And good evening to Bogotá. Here we are again, hopefully more interesting than Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So good evening to everyone who's watching us, rather than the no doubt very boring and muted American election. Brendan, what have we got in store tonight? Brendan, have we lost you there? Well, I mean, I hope Brendan's going to kick it in.
Ollie, I can see you now. I hope you can,
yes, we've got you now, Brendan. Ready to go.
Excellent. Well, this always happens. If it didn't happen, something would be wrong and strange. But we are competing against Joe Biden and Donald Trump, the big debate, the final debate. Anyway, Ollie, coming up tonight on Colombia's only live and interactive English language chat show, we'll be swinging our hips, virtually that is, and we could all do with it, dads, to the various sounds of Colombia. Yes, our topic in focus tonight is Colombian music. Salsa may be the first thing that comes to mind for most foreigners when they think about music here, but there's much more to the place than that. In the bog standard Bogotá Tienda, you'll hear plenty of aguardiente-inducing tune and what Colombian country classics. Let us know what Colombian music is on your essential playlist. What, on the other hand, would you not even consider for a B-side? Get in touch with us right now using the live comment facility, or if you're watching this recorded, you can send us a message via the medium on which you're viewing us, or send us a tweet to @Bogotá_Post. Our musical magical moment is to come, but first it's our roundup of the news, of the week's news, I should say, and replete with cat sacrificing witches in Cali. Halloween is almost here after all, but more on that later. First, Ollie, last week we spoke about the possibility of another messy day of protest marches on the horizon. Well, the 21st of October has come and gone, and it all passed off without much ado. Is it a sign that Colombia is a little too fatigued to protest now?
I think that's definitely a possibility, Brendan. There's a bit of a question over whether this is Colombia being fatigued or simply just not really having cared all that much in the first place. I think it's maybe a little bit from Box A and a little bit from Box B. Let's remember that even back in November, those were big protests by Colombian standards, but they weren't big protests by, for example, the similar protests that kicked off at the end of last year in Chile. They weren't the size of the Hong Kong protests. You know, we all remember in Britain having 1 million people out on the streets to demonstrate against war in Iraq. That's not the case. That's not been the case in Colombia yet.
Yeah, okay. So do you think, because obviously the big anniversary is the 21st of November, when we did have, well, from I think both your time here and my time here, probably the biggest, but as you said, an international comparison, maybe not that big. But maybe would it kick off again in November? I tend to find these rainier months that we're coming into now, or rainy month that is November, that's when people are most at the most angriest anyway, they're angriest that they are. So there's a potential that maybe we could have something in November. But with the pandemic, maybe the dynamic has changed.
Yeah, again, it's very hard to say. I mean, whether or not people want to go out, whether or not people are sheltering, it's odd because you would think that the pandemic would be a reason for people to be more irritated with daily life. And remember, although I'm seeing quite a lot of English language media paint this as a kind of reaction against Duque's policies and against especially the killings of social leaders. I don't think that's actually the case. That's somewhat simplistic. I think these are largely a simple complaining of how life is, a howl of rage, as we noticed at the start of September when we had those, that terrible night which ended in carnage. That obviously wasn't the case yesterday, but there's just a whole raft of things that people are angry with, and I think it's fairer to say that they're simply that they're simply angry at the state of Colombia in general, rather than it being one specific complaint.
Yeah, you mentioned some international media reporting this. I think it was Vice. I just saw the headline. Somebody reposted it on Facebook and saying Colombians are sick of their president. I thought, well, you could replace the word Colombia for pretty much any country in the world.
Yes.
That's a headline. With the exception, perhaps, of Queen Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, of course. She can do no wrong. Yeah, of course. And we all love her. But anyway, another thing that came and is the Minga, the indigenous Minga. And by all accounts, they behaved themselves pretty well and even went beyond what might have been expected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems a little bit strange, I think, to have people praised for leaving a place they stayed in a good state. I mean, that should be a normal state of affairs, frankly. But yeah, in the same way that, there's a lot of comments about how the Japanese are constantly praised at big sporting events such as the Olympics or the World Cup for picking up litter and so forth. And that's exactly what happens this week. So the Minga was staying in the Palacio de Deportes in Salitre, and photos from the site seem to show the venue in an absolutely pristine condition. So, fair play to them.
Well, yeah, but maybe I should look moving into a house with them, because I've had my fair share of very bad housemates when it comes to keeping the kitchen clean. Anyway, present company accepted where I am, I have to say. It's pretty good. I was going to ask, though, Duque, we talked last week as well about meeting the Minga. He didn't in the end, did he? He got into some controversy for heading off to Choco instead. That's where his priorities.
That's right. I mean, to be fair to Duque, he did send down the Interior Minister, Alicia Arango, which we talked about last week. There's speculation, I think, I'm not sure if it's been confirmed, but there's certainly been speculation that Duque now is going to go and meet indigenous leaders on their home turf in Cauca. Whether that's fully true or not, I don't know. Don't blame me if that's not the case.
How will he manage that logistically, considering he's still doing his daily updates from, I think, Palacio de Nariño? Maybe they're not all from Palacio de Nariño, but
I'm sure.
Been ongoing.
I'm sure he would be very happy to do one, self-congratulating, kind of thing. Look at me, aren't I brave? Yeah, hard to say.
Yeah,
hard to say. I mean, he's been flying around to meet soldiers. It's not. He's got time on his plate.
Okay. Rumor has it, Ollie, by the way, that in your wardrobe there you have a T-shirt marking the arrival of Papa Francisco to Colombia back, 2 or 3 years ago now. Of course, Papa Francisco this week came out and said how the church should recognize same-sex marriages. But in the same week that he's come out and said that, and I guess the strongest terms we've ever seen from any pope, and what the leader of the Catholic Church says, it does make a big difference here in Colombia, where we have a big Catholic majority. But up in Cartagena, we had a judge ruling that a lesbian couple couldn't marry. Now, she found some ways around the law, because technically it is law now that they can enter into a civil union. An interesting enough story, considering the week that's in it.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not acceptable, frankly. If you want to be a judge, you have to carry out the laws of the land. You don't get to simply pick and choose which they are. And if you're uncomfortable morally with doing this, then that's fine. We can't police people's morals, much as I'd love to, but we certainly can police their actions. Now, if you happen to think that for whatever reason you don't want to marry this couple, that's fine. But you can't expect to be a sitting judge. And I'm frankly astonished, Brendan, that this person, Ramiro we'll have to look up his name in a second. I'm amazed that he's allowed to do this. It just seems to me absolutely bizarre. Unacceptable, completely unacceptable. It's not a judge's opinion to start deciding which laws to apply and which not.
Do you think, though, in rural enough conservative areas of Colombia, well, obviously saying conservative, I'm answering the question, but in outside of Bogotá and the more liberal spots here, that a lot of people would back this? Now, obviously on Facebook.
Absolutely. And I think many people in England, I mean, the tide's starting to turn a bit now in England, but, capital punishment is still massively popular in Britain. I don't think that's a reason to bring it back. Look, my granddad used to say, and he was an MP, and he used to say, look, at the end of the day, swimming pools cost a fortune to run. Heating massive blocks of water in poorly insulated leisure centres, it's just not an economic thing to do. They cost a fortune. However, swimming's good for you, and beer is bad for you, even though it's very cheap to produce. So we tax beer and we subsidise swimming pools. And that's exactly the same as gay marriage. People might not want it necessarily, the majority, but democracy is bound to protect the weakest in society. Just because there's a massive majority of people who want to treat gay people in an appalling way, that doesn't mean we have to kowtow to them.
Well, another thing, it's true that you've read the Bible from cover to cover. I saw somebody...
I'm third or fourth generation atheist. I've got no insight on these types of things.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I saw some of the comments, some of those more conservative comments saying that the Bible, of course, is against this. I'm not 100% sure that they are in black and white in the Bible that same-sex unions are not allowed.
No, I'm very suspicious of that.
Yeah. And of course, Colombia's, I call him Father Funky, Padre Linero, who used to be on Caracol television. I think he still does stuff for Blue Radio. Of course, I just saw a headline, and again, he's always, I think, on the money with these things, said the Catholic Church was late and is still late in recognizing same-sex unions. So
yeah, the world's changed. I mean, yeah, there's a time, I think, in everything where you just have to see which way the wind is blowing, and gay marriage, it's not even a thing. I find it very weird, and we're slightly off topic here, but it's a similar thing. I find abortion very odd because, this was settled so long ago in my country, and I realise in your country maybe a little bit different. But, we settled the issue of abortion just years ago, and you know what? England didn't fall into the sea. Britain hasn't had a massive moral collapse. We've just had people in a traumatic situation not having to go through a legal battle as well as a kind of internal, let's say, moral, philosophical battle.
Yeah, that's true indeed. There, the state, if we're talking about a state being there as a support and something to lean on, that's, I guess, what it should be there for. Of course, guys, if you've got anything to say on this or other matters, do get in touch with us by using the live comment facility, or if you're watching this as already recorded, you can send us a tweet to @Bogotá Post or wherever you happen to be watching. And our main topic for discussion tonight, in about 15 minutes' time, we're going to be talking about music in Colombia. So is it only salsa for you? Are you into vallenato, all of that kind of stuff? Let us know. Do get involved. Moving on, though, from that story, Ollie, the groundbreaking or the sod turning of the metro happened this week. Bogotá is going to have a metro, but you've got an issue with the terminology, for one.
Oh, I don't like this idea of... I mean... I don't know about you, Brendan, but a metro to me is not a single line. I don't think we can call a single elevated railway a metro. That's a really grandiose term. I mean, in my head, a metro is a large, interconnected system that goes to different places and in many different directions. I think that's a key. The Transmilenio, were it to be immediately converted into a proper metro system, I would maybe consider calling a metro. But really, I think key to being a metro is that it goes underground. I know the Medellin Metro calls itself a metro, but it's a little bit like the Democratic Republic of North Korea. It's one thing in name and another thing in practice.
Okay, I was wondering where you're going on that for a second. Okay, I get you now. But I guess it has to start somewhere, and it was kind of unveiled to great fanfare the day before yesterday at this sod turning. I think it's down Fontibon way.
Well, it's a shock to me, Brendan, because last year there were signs all down Caracas outside my local Transmilenio station saying "Aquí hay metro," and I thought to myself, "Has my Spanish gone really downhill?" I thought "Aquí hay metro" meant that there was a metro here, but I conspicuously failed to notice one here above me.
Unless they were referring to the metro tiendas and supermarkets that you have around the city. But yeah, of course, people say that any city worth its weight really does have a metro, or at least a good rail system running through its city. So it is the missing link, perhaps, for Bogota, and it has to start somewhere.
Preposterous, yeah. I mean, I remember reading years ago that there are only 3 cities in the world of Bogota's size that don't have a proper metro system, and it's just astonishing, really, when you think about it. I mean, you're looking at a city of 8 million people, and they are expected to move around on tiny little buses, and even the reticulated Transmillennials, these are pathetically small to be a primary transport system. Pathetically small.
Yeah, and I mean, not only that being small, but they're regularly in competition with other traffic. They have to wait at traffic lights or whatever. Yeah, so it just adds to the delays. I mean, I might get in trouble for saying this, but even Caracas has a metro. But anyway, they had a good few.
Yes, I told you, down on Avenida Caracas, it was saying "I Metro."
Well, we'll wait and see. It'll be, I think, officially, is it that the first lines are meant to operate in 2027? So we've only 7 years to wait.
Well, 2027 when they'll start running trains. Yeah, another year before we get to ride on them.
Okay, and maybe I'll have my current visa situation sorted out by then.
Time to dream.
Who will be the president in 2027 will be an interesting one to know as well. We have news that one lady is
Martin Santos.
Oh,
Martin Santos, I'm going with. Anyway,
early money is on him, but he hasn't announced that he's going to run for the next one. First of all, which would only take him up to 2026 anyway. But,
exactly. That's
yeah.
So or Claudia, of course.
Indeed, she could be there if she survives the poisoned chalice that is Mayor of Bogota. But there is a lady who's declared her interest for the 2022 runoff.
Angela Robledo, yes. I mean, she ran on the undercard with Petro, so she's hardly an unknown quantity. This is not a surprising thing. I think what's interesting about this is she could well be the first credible female candidate for presidency that Colombia's had. So we've had female vice presidential candidates, of course. We currently have a vice president, a female vice president. Last time round, we had a couple of smaller candidates, but they dropped out very, very quickly. I don't think they were really fully in the race in the way that, say, Duque, Petro, and Fajardo were.
Well, of course, just to say there's been my old friend Clara Lopez, of course, who's been a perennial runner for president. Unlikely to run again, I take it.
Age isn't on her side. But I would have, mind you, look at Biden and Trump tonight. I mean, they're both, well past retirement age. I think the thing with people like Clara Lopez, those aren't really serious candidates. Angela Robledo she says she's been talking to a number of parties. This is something I find very weird about Colombian politics. It's the idea that, and actually in one way I kind of like it, in the way that the US isn't meant to have political parties, that they're meant to be prohibited. So I quite like the idea of that. I like the idea of having everyone as an independent. She says she's been talking to the Greens, seems like a natural fit. She could, if Gustavo doesn't run, she could well be running for somebody like Colombia Humana. She says she's a sower of politics. She brings different views together. Other people, I suspect, might say that she's a political opportunist. Hard to know.
Yeah, and of course, in English, that a sower of of politics or whatever
doesn't look good written down.
Yeah, it could easily be turned into something else and attacked. And anyway, it might stink of something. But we'll leave that one where it is. Of course, we'll be talking as the weeks go on more about that, and as we enter into 2021 and beyond, that race will go on, and who will be in the White House by then. But anyway, let's not talk about that, or people might start watching the debate. Something that I know really annoyed you. Well, I mean, it should annoy everybody, but a weird story.
What the hell's wrong with you if it doesn't annoy you?
What is it? Well, I just think it's a weird story. I mean, people eat cats in some parts of the world, so I believe.
That's true.
But this wasn't quite eating them. A few witches sacrificing cats in Cali. Well, we've always said the Caleños were. I won't finish that. But a weird story, to say the least.
Well, yes. I mean, I have adopted a few animals, a cat and a couple of dogs, and actually tomorrow I might be adopting some fish as well. It's a long story. The adoption agencies that I'm in contact with on a sort of semi-regular basis, they all, at this time of year, every year, stop adopting out cats in general, and especially black cats, precisely because of this. Because, there's monsters out there, and, witchery and brujas, it's something that's taken seriously in Colombia, ridiculous as that may seem in 2020. We've got an article coming up, actually, a pair of articles next week on just that subject. But this is disgusting. I mean, absolutely, really disgusting. Killing and slaughtering cats and pinning them to trees. It makes you wonder what type of society you live in, doesn't it?
Whatever. Well, again, if we're referring back to the Bible, I know they used to slaughter goats, but anyway, or sheep, was it? Whatever, some sort of animals like that. But I guess that's kind of seen as more acceptable, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, not so many people have goats as pets, I suppose, which is strange, actually. The reason we call them nanny goats is because they did used to be used as literally as nannies. They used to feed kids directly, like kids as in human children, not goat kids. They just bring them into maternity wards.
I have to say, one of my favorite pets, in inverted commas, growing up was this very friendly cow that we had for years. She lived to be about 22, so she was alive before I was even born. And then, just one of the friendliest cows we've ever had. Nowadays, you can't get within a kilometer of one of our cows and they'll go wild. They're pure wild. But anyway, that's
don't say mad. Don't say mad. Don't say the word mad.
I was going to talk about these witches, though. I did see the video that was posted on different media outlets showing them. Well, not showing them in the act of sacrificing, but after. And in fairness, whether they're witches or not, but one of them who was recorded, if I was to run into her in a dark alleyway in Cali or here in Bogotá, especially with Halloween coming along, I'd be running a mile away, for sure.
She was a bruiser, all right, yeah. She wouldn't be out of, we were talking last week about Colombia being potentially good at rugby sevens. I think she'd be happy in a scrum, frankly. Anyway.
We can insult her, I think. That is, we're finding sport for her.
Hang on, wait. Somebody who kills cats, tortures them and pins them to a tree, frankly deserves a few insults. But, there you go.
Okay. By the way, just thanks to Jazid and Paolo for your messages. We'll get onto those in a bit when we're talking about music as well, specifically, which is coming up in about 5 minutes, I'd say. Lots to talk about on that topic. But we can't do an episode without our weekly James watch. And he's picked up an injury, a muscle injury, unfortunately. So he's going to be out of the weekend action for league leaders Everton. That's disappointing.
Not a bad result at the weekend, though. Fiercely contested Mersey derby. I think that the talking points were nothing to do with the Colombian lads in the end, but both seemed to acquit themselves well, and I think Everton will be happy with a draw there. Yeah,
of course. I mean, Liverpool, all-conquering Liverpool last season in the Premier League, so it's a point at home, but these games, as we're saying these days, when they're in empty stadiums, you're losing that sensation of having the crowd there. I mean, if you look briefly, just to mention, at the Old Firm derby in Glasgow between Rangers and Celtic, which was played at the home of Celtic, by all accounts, Celtic kind of almost gave up with the last 20 minutes. If they had 40,000 mad lunatic Celtic fans roaring at them, there's no way they'd be allowed to give up for the last 20 minutes of the game. But anyway...
No. Talking of giving up, Alfredo Morelos seems to have gone very much off the boil since not getting a move in the summer. So, he's Rangers.
And he was scoring a lot of goals, but a bit of a character though as well. You had to put money on him to be the first man to get a red card in any game if you were betting.
He's playing for the right team, isn't he? Rangers are. Pretty morally reprehensible, I think we can all agree. What about cycling, Brendan? So, Brendan, we saw in the cycling today Esteban Chavez, possibly the unluckiest man in cycling, managed to fall off his bike again today. He's lost another minute or so, which is disappointing because he had quite a good race up until then. Yeah, things are a bit confused now.
Is that coming near the end now?
Yes.
This weekend. Yeah.
So it's it's a difficult. It's a bit of a difficult situation. I mean, let's see. I mean, I'm quite surprised that the Giro is finishing, and I really don't know if the Vuelta will. Spain seems to be going into a bit of corona chaos again, and big question marks over whether that's going to finish, which potentially a bit of a shame for people like I think Superman is racing the Vuelta as well. Could be good.
Unless they take the line that Ireland has taken. Ireland's entered into a pretty severe lockdown for the next 6 weeks, but elite sport has been given a pass. So that might be one way around it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Roscommon is still playing, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Ollie, that's our news roundup for the week. When you start mentioning Roscommon, we better move on, and quickly. We are, as we said at the top of the program, going to talk about music, and already we've got a comment asking us. We'll get to that in a second, Ollie. You can tackle that one because you're the music festival guy, or at least you'll know more than I do. But music in Colombia, I mean, what does it mean to you? As I said, most probably foreigners from the outside looking in or just arrived, they might have heard of salsa, definitely Shakira, and these days maybe J Balvin because of that, what was it, Despacito and things like that. If you're just kind of coming here with no knowledge. But there's an awful lot more to it, obviously, and much better, I'll say, than just what I've mentioned.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie and pretend that I was a huge Vallenato fan before coming to Colombia, nor even that I am now. Vallenato, for example, sums up Colombian music to me because it's something I just don't listen to in the house, and it's something I don't go out of my way to listen to here in Bogotá. But the minute I'm outside of Bogotá, preferably somewhere hot, worrying about mosquitoes, nice cold Aguila or Costeña, sitting on the table, talking about the beer, not the people, then, frankly, what do I want to be listening to? I don't want to be listening to art rock. I don't want to be listening to cleverly constructed electro noise. I want some proper accordions kicking off. That's what I want. That just makes me feel instantly like I'm in Colombia. The minute I hear the old accordions going off, the minute I hear the first little that instantly I just think, yep, this is Colombia right here.
Yeah, well, you see, there's a time, as you mentioned, there is a time and a place for that kind of music, but no matter where I go now, and my socializing habits, especially during this pandemic where I haven't been moving that much, but if you go to your little tienda, or if I can say it, clandestine tiendas these days, but the music you're getting in Bogotá, and the kind of colder weather I tend to find is what I describe, because I'm terrible at knowing what kind of genre it is, but okay, you might get a bit of ranchero, which obviously is Mexican, but the Colombian versions of them too. Mm-hmm. But this kind of Colombian country style music, it's kind of sad, depressing, talking about a woman that left. There's usually a man singing. There's usually a reference to aguardiente, even, dare I mention it, Pablo Escobar thrown in for good measure. That's more Jimmy Gutierrez, or the Amigos con Derechos song. There are all those kind of things, and it's the I would call it the Rocola culture, that your Rocola culture that you have. So that's nearly all the music I listen to these days. Unless I'm at home and I decide I want something to remind me of home, as in home Ireland, and I'm in the house, I'll put on YouTube or a channel, a radio station from home. But in the tiendas,
my lovely horse, yeah,
my lovely, exactly. Oh well, I play that every morning. That's my anthem. But yeah, it's all that kind of music. So like Maldita Traición from what's his name, Alzate, Adios Amor, Christian Nodal.
Adios Amor, yeah.
All these songs. It's not like I go and search for them, but they're interesting. I tend to prefer the livelier songs. But what I'm saying, for me, it's all about the ambience, and it's kind of the music fits the ambience and vice versa. Because if I put on, for example, one of the first Colombian songs that I really got into was Joe Rojo's La Tortuga Bajo de Agua. It's a lively thing. But if you're in a tienda with lads who've just finished their day's work on the construction site and they're in for a few pokers or aguilas, they kind of like to listen to these more kind of ballady, romantic-y type things, or trouble with love.
Very maudlin, isn't it? It's always that classically maudlin kind of moaning. It's a very Latin thing, I think. It really does. Well, we've got a few weird comments coming in today, haven't we? So I guess we'd throw out a couple of shout-outs. So Yazid Contreras Bergo, he's a sometime writer for the Bogotá Post, says hello. So hello, Yazid. Hola to Philippe Costa as well. Hello to
guys. Let us know your music, guys. We want to know what you like.
Paula Perez as well, a weekly contributor at the moment. Yeah. Anyway, I love rockolas. I have to say, it's interesting that you mention them, because I think there's something beautifully democratic about having rockolas. Because it's that way that kind of everybody in the bar is responsible for the music, rather than having this kind of autocracy of a DJ or a bar person. So I think that's a really nice kind of, and again, like you say, the ambiance reflects the people. So if you think it's all a bit too maudlin and that, then people can change it.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, though, that I find at times, okay, number one, there can be the rockolas where the owners have just decided to take control of the remote control. So they have it. It doesn't matter if you put music in, and they'll skip songs on. Because now and again, like, I'll be with my local lads here, and they go, "Oh, like, play us a song that you like to listen to in Ireland," and I'll put it on, and they're kind of like, "Oh, okay, that's good," and then they're like, "Okay, let's move on quickly and get back to our type of music." But then on the flip side, I have been in kind of random tiendas over the years, and I might be in with another foreigner, like another Irish guy or English guy or whatever. And they notice, oh, they're having a conversation in English. And if there's no one else in there, we notice, oh, they've started playing English songs. So they kind of go, oh, these lads obviously only want to listen English songs. But for me, again, if I'm in those tiendas, I like to hear the Spanish Colombian music in the background. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't come thousands and thousands of kilometers to listen to U2, have we? But I spend quite a lot of my time trying to get away from U2, in the same way he tries to get away from the Irish tax authorities.
Come on,
Oh,
Ali.
come on. He's a national legend. He's a hero. Yeah. Everyone in Ireland. I've never yet met an Irish person who likes Bono, I have to say.
President of the world. President of the world.
President of his own head, that's for sure. But yeah, no, I really like that. I love the idea of a rocola. And, you know, ideally it wants to be in a tienda with a pataco next to the table, just dropping the empties straight in. Yeah, it's a good Colombian night, isn't it?
There's
Maybe
also
a cheeky bit of Bolirana.
Yeah, there's also usually some nice visual content on these rocolas that have a screen. Some very educational stuff on.
Yeah, not always suitable for children. Yeah, unless they're thirsty.
Exactly.
Well, but you'd be worried about plastic pollution then. Anyway, yeah. Moving on.
I was going to say in the regions, though, if we're going to break this down, there are because you mentioned about going and where you want to hear your vallenato and things like that. So there is music specific to different regions. Go into that a little bit more. Well,
I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Colombia is, I think, so much of Colombian regional identity is from music. You know, more than say, you know, I don't know how the Republic is, but certainly you wouldn't say England is defined in its areas by music, by many other things, but music isn't one of the things that we pick out. There's a couple of scenes here and there, but largely the island all listens to the same stuff. Whereas in Colombia, I mean, yeah, it's very pronounced. I mean, you can't imagine talking even about Valledupar without mentioning Vallenato. That's unthinkable. The idea that you could mention Cesar as a department and not mention Vallenato is insane. To talk about Barranquilla and not talk about champeta seems so difficult. You know, when we think of Pacific music, it's really distinctive woodwind instruments. You know, again, that's so evocative and something that just doesn't happen in other parts of the country. And then, you know, there's merengue and all kinds of stuff. When you're down on the Llanos, you know, what is a trip to the Llanos if you can't see a giant bloody harp? Frankly,
and they do a lovely dance. There's usually like children, young enough children or in their early teens. The women with these traditional, or the girls with the traditional gear, skirts on them, dresses. It's fascinating to watch. Actually, one of the last things I got to enjoy here before the lockdown came in at the annual tourism fair in Enato, and I think it was Meta that was the guest departamento that was invited. So there was a concert on and all that music. But yeah, it was, and obviously with me the harp, because I'm from Ireland and the harp is one of our national symbols. So I kind of see it as one little link there. But the joropo and the dance that's linked to it, like it is very much part of that Llanos culture.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, Vallenato, isn't that now like UN
protected?
UNESCO, yeah, protected. So it's
as a kind of traditional art form. Yeah, I mean, which I think is a lovely thing. I've always found it, and I kind of mentioned this the other week. I just find the national anthem of Colombia to be utterly bizarre. You know, you're talking about a country that's produced so much interesting music. You know, Colombia is the genesis of so many different musical forms, some of which really only exist here. I mean, joropo, you can say, is shared with the Venezuelan Llanos as well. And, you know, things like champeta break out of Colombia. But vallenato really is a Colombian thing. You know, no one is listening to Vallenato. Salsa Choque, as far as I'm aware, that's Colombia only. And I think it's amazing. And then we look at the national anthem, and instead, what do we have? We've just got this bombastic dirge. It sounds like some kind of Austrian or Swiss nightmare. This kind of bom 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 bom, and you think that doesn't sound Colombian. Where are the galloping drums? It's bizarre.
Do kind of national anthems the world over not follow a particular pattern in many ways?
No, that's true. I mean, that's the legacy of European colonialism, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, I have to say, like, in terms of as national anthems go, I don't dislike the Colombian national anthem.
No, I find it sort of vaguely irritating, like national anthem. I don't think it's particularly bad national anthem. I just think it's sad and disappointing not to have something, Colombian, genuinely Colombian.
So should we start the campaign now? Hashtag.
Yeah, let's get Dear Me These Dios should be our should be our new national anthem singer. That wouldn't
go down too well. He's about as divisive as Alvaro Uribe is, isn't he? There's a lot of people who a little bit snobby about when you mention Diomedes. It's kind of like,
definitely. Guy. Definitely. Listen, Colombian music is absolutely snobbish. I mean, salsa fans will go out of their way to say, I'm not into Vallenato, it's for peasants. As though that were a bad thing. I mean, show me a musical culture anywhere in the world, Brendan, that's not overwhelmingly run by working class kids. I mean, little rich kids don't tend to make good music, with the odd exception.
Yeah, and I guess if you're looking at it from a specifically Bogotá point of view, I would guess the richer kids here are more into their international music, rock and that kind of stuff. I'm guessing. Whereas, in the more working class neighborhoods, poorer neighborhoods, it's unlikely you'll be having rock bars. Very unlikely. It's all the aforementioned rocolas and things.
Yeah,
like that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of the snobby nature, I mean, from an international point of view as well, Colombia obviously has had a fair bit of success in the last few years. I mean, Latino music in general has kind of shot up. Kind of anything now with a bit of Spanish in it seems to be doing well on the pop charts the world over. I mean, I know you're a big fan of J Balvin and Shakira and things like that, music that you regularly listen to.
I was hyping up Maluma for president this week.
Oh, well, we could do worse, in fairness, considering what might be the options. But a bit maybe too early for Sebastian Yatra. He seems to be the new up-and-coming kind of can do no wrong guy. He's in nearly every television advert that I can see aimed at kids. You described him as the upcoming
James Blunt.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Yes, well, yeah, that's it. The young Carlos Vives. Although, how old is Carlos Vives? I mean, I always joke that Carlos Vives, but I wish you didn't. Which maybe is a little harsh. I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I'm sure you'd have a lovely time with him if you went on the piss.
Don't you know he's listening in right now? Carlos, send us a message and refute that. All of you having a go.
He definitely thinks we're a pair of mamertos, I'm sure. He's very, very right-wing. And again, I think that's what annoys me about him. It's this tendency to get some indigenous people into your video, laugh and clown about with them on camera, give it the whole 9 yards about how they know more about music than we ever will, but then magically all the profit seems to end up with Senor Vives himself.
Well, there's that kind of a lot of people the world over. He's a restaurant owner as well here, isn't he? Is that Vives, or am I getting confused?
Yeah. Among other things, yeah. I think his brother runs it, and he owns it, yeah. Okay. I mean, look, Carlos Vives is stupendously popular and seems not to have aged in the time since I've been in Colombia. As far as I can see, he's just stuck in the same... but I mean, fair play to him. He's wildly successful. He'll sell out Campín to an army of sort of middle-aged women year in, year out, if he wants to.
There's this little tricky thing when we're talking about kind of Colombian music on the international stage, and in that context, I guess we're referring here to pop music and that genre. The Super Bowl this year had what's her face, Jennifer Lopez and Shakira on stage. Wasn't it Shakira as well on stage together? And a lot was made of the fantastic show, but it kind of did split down the lines. In somebody was telling me in the United States, where the Hispanics were like, "Oh, this is great! It's showing," a lot of Hispanics anyway, parts of our culture, and others were going, "God, I had to hide my children from watching that halftime spectacle of these scantily clad women dancing around stage." And I think it's unfair just to level that at Hispanic or Latino culture. I mean, that's maybe pop music aimed at kind of teenagers the world over, but that was kind of the thing that was coming into it. And I guess a region and a country like Colombia that's maybe trying to put out an image that it's not just all about our physically beautiful looking women, there's more to it than that. That was an image that was projected, at least one part of the image anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, dancing, of course, it's a thing that defines music in Latin America. Of course, dancing, especially sometimes, I guess, what would seem to be, shall we say, highly sensual music.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it could come as a bit of a shock to certain, Northern European or American sensibilities. Yeah, that makes sense. I notice Philippe Costa here saying, I don't know if that's the same person, Philippe Costa and Philippe Costa. That's weird. He's saying here, let's have a national anthem competition. I'm going with the Marseillaise from France.
Well, I don't know. I think what he might be saying is have a competition to come up with a new Colombian national anthem. Is that what you're saying, Philip? That's how I'm taking it. Not that we have a national anthem. Is that maybe have a primary school competition. Or go around to the schools and say design a new, or come up with a new national anthem.
That's kind of what Australia did, wasn't it?
I've no idea. For Advanced Australia Fair.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when they were dumping in "God Save the Queen," which is a pretty awful anthem, I have to say, which is why half our footballers don't sing it. And Paula Andrea Perez Rubiano again here, saying she doesn't know much about the music from the Amazon.
And neither do I.
No, I mean, I've kind of been with indigenous communities playing music. There certainly is music down there. It's not an alien concept. But yeah, I mean, I would have struggled to know kind of what it is.
Yeah, I'd have no idea, to be honest. Anyone listening in from Leticia and
drums, I remember drums.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's a lot of drums, a lot of percussion instruments anyway. Paolo also mentioned earlier on, though, because I know we were going to kind of quickly mention perhaps a few festivals that regularly happen when we're not in COVID times and severe restrictions on crowd gatherings. But she mentioned the Caranga Music Festival that's held in Tinjaca in Boyacá every August, usually. There's another few decent festivals, though. I mean, Colombia, in fairness, has brought in some big artists over the last few years. People kind of said with the Venezuela, used to these international artists, Colombia has shot up, which I guess then can only help the arts. Maybe I'm wrong on this. You would like to think that would help music in general here, but maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's always a bit of a debate here. Friends of mine who play in smaller bands and stuff, there's always a bit of a debate over whether Rock al Parque is a positive thing or a negative thing. It just seems to me an insane thing to say, frankly. I mean, in the same way as I find it utterly bizarre when people say things like, Colombia is getting worse. We're almost at the days of Escobar again. And I say, what, are you out of your minds? There were twice as many homicides in the early 90s as there are now. I mean, Colombia is unquestionably better. That doesn't make, the current government a good thing necessarily, but let's not rewrite history here. And I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah, is Rock al Parque positive for Colombia? Yeah, absolutely. Of course it is. You'd be insane to say no. It's a free festival in the middle of a city that has international caliber artists attending. And by the way, you'll sometimes read Colombians posting messages saying, people don't take Rock al Parque seriously en el exterior. They absolutely 100% do. I've spoken to band after band after band off the record at Rock al Parque. There's no reason for them to be complimentary whatsoever. And again and again and again, they say the same thing. We wanted to come down here. We've heard about it being a big festival. It's an audience we'd like to reach. Absolutely. Okay. And that's not playing it up, hamming it up for the audiences.
Yeah. Just to get back then to festivals of Colombian music here. Do you know, like, kind of the bigger ones? I have to say, like, I'm not a big festival goer. I know there's the one in Cali, the
Petronio Alvarez.
Yeah. Is that specifically of Colombian music, or is that international?
Well, specifically Pacific music, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That seems to be a pretty big one. I've known a lot of foreigners that have gone there. Yeah.
Thousands, tens of thousands of people. And then, of course, you've got, let's not forget the Barranquilla Carnival.
Oh, there we go. And is that actually going to happen this year? Or, well, next year it will be. But
try telling the costeños they're not having a festival in Barranquilla next, a carnival in Barranquilla next February. Go on, Brendan. I'll nominate you for that. I tell you what, you are earning that visa if you can pull that trick.
Well, okay, fair enough. Give me that.
Give you nationality if you can stop Barranquilla from not turning into an absolute mess for a week. I don't think there's any way that can happen, and it will. That's actually an interesting point. Will Duque have the guts to try and stop that? If we're in a bad position COVID-wise in February. Which isn't all that unlikely. People go away on holiday in early January. Lots of chances for contagion. A couple of weeks later, and we're looking at carnival time.
But I thought a decision was made on that already. No?
I will be astonished if... And again, I would say it's very much one thing to say there's not going to be a carnival this year. It's another thing entirely to actually do that.
So you're saying... if the rest of the country's kind of still in some sort of a quasi-lockdown or things are happening, get to Barranquilla for the fun and frolics. Okay.
Do you think the police are going to try and stop tens of thousands of people emptying onto the streets? Can't see it, Brendan. I just can't see it. Now, there's obviously La Leyenda di Vallenato. That's a huge one.
Okay, yeah.
I've been to international Joropo festivals. I mean, I say international, we're really talking about Colombia and Venezuela. But yeah, great fun. Huge, tiny little Janeiro villages being absolutely overrun. Not a hotel bed in sight, just sleeping in people's spare rooms. Yeah, great fun.
But this is the thing. I guess you could nearly pick a Colombian pueblito for every week of the year. And do it then for a few years and go to a different one each weekend. And there'll be some sort of a festival in normal times, of course. And they'll all have their various little idiosyncrasies and there'll a lot of things in common, but also maybe little differences, especially between the regions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone wants to show off their local thing. And of course, attracting in the big names. It was a huge thing for us to see Cholo Valderrama coming across to the relatively small town. It has a big festival, but it's a relatively small town of San Martín de los Llanos in Meta. And, you could see very quickly what that meant to the people of the town. And people had flocked in from far and wide for this guy. Who incidentally, he's from Boyacá, which I would then, let's link it all back. talking to Paola Andrea Perez Rubiano, Caranga, not a massive fan personally. Few too many Ruanas. But yeah, if you're talking about great boya sensei musicians of Colombia, actually, I would say the best is the Joropo legend El Llanero himself, somewhat strangely born in Sogamoso, El Cholo Valderrama.
Okay, but as you were saying earlier to me privately, Sogamoso is kind of seen as the gateway into the Llanos in that taking that
They
route.
think it is, yeah.
Okay,
they absolutely think it is. So yeah.
Just to mention, I know we're coming near the end here, Ollie. Christmas time is coming up, and obviously there are songs that really do mean it is Christmas in Colombia. They're already playing on all the various radio stations, and if you go into your local fruit and veg shop now as well, they generally have the music playing. One of the guys is Pastor Lopez. Of course, he was Venezuelan born, but kind of linked to Bucaramanga. So nearly any song from Pastor Lopez, that's Christmas. And then there's another one that I like, Ollie, and it's probably a nice way to finish this up. Tus Besos Son, Como Caramelo. And Ollie...
Well, not mine.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they are. I've never had the pleasure to try them or to taste any of your kisses, but I'm sure they are like caramel. I can't remember who sings that, but to me it's another Christmas classic for Colombia. I think,
well, if you're talking about Christmas classics, Brendan, have you ever got into novenas?
Oh, not really. No, not my thing.
No, you're not gathering around to it all. Ben, Belen. No.
I had to do it at work the last couple of years.
Oh, jeez.
That was it. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I am very sorry.
Yeah, I think we're practically out of time here. Are we?
Well, I don't know. Are we going to the hour, or are we going?
Oh yeah, I see somebody. Our producer is telling us. We still have another 3 minutes. Okay, well then that gets us time to get in Paula's comment that you mentioned about a stereo picnic. Of course, again, it's not Colombian music. There might be Colombian bands.
Well, actually, no. I hang on. Whoa. That's English. That's English for stop a horse. If you're if you're a learner. I don't think that's fully fair. It's absolutely true that the headliners are normally, let's say, not Colombian traditional music, but a stereo picnic go out of their way to feature people like Toto La Montesina, Canelon de Timbiqui. We've had there quite a few others. I think they do quite a good job of getting traditional Colombian music early on in the day. Certainly, like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. That's pretty normal. And they really do support a lot of Colombian new music as well. So you've got kind of sort of more Caribbean rhythms from the Ira Kings, for example, last year, things like that. It's interesting.
Okay, and I know we were trying to avoid it, but let's, for the last minute that we practically have, salsa. Are you a fan?
Well, I do live quite close to La 33, just a few blocks over that way. Salsa's not my personal cup of tea. I mean, it's, thinking as an Englishman, it's the kind of thing you retire and start doing, isn't it?
Okay. Well,
I did have a great experience, though, when my mum was here. I took her to go salsa dancing because she retired and learned how to dance salsa. And my gosh, I've never seen anyone kick up a fuss. Oh, is there going to be a proper sprung floor? Because I was like, Colombians are just going to get up and dance. She's like, oh, well, I don't know what the protocol is for asking people to dance. And I was like, oh, you, do you want to dance with my mum? Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'll be good. Oliver, he's far too young. Trust me, he doesn't care about this. He's just very happy to be dancing at all, and especially with a foreign lady.
Yeah, there you go. It's the music to me. There are a couple of songs I like. I guess with Joe Rojo, who I mentioned, I guess is that class as salsa. And there's a song also, Cual es tu tosa, which is another Calenya song. I can't remember who the group sings that, but ¿Cuál es tu cosa? I like that. Next week, Ollie, though, we mentioned witches earlier on. We'll be kind of returning to that theme. Halloween in Colombia, people might think, do they celebrate Halloween if you're listening from the outside and haven't been there?
Very much.
Halloween's a big thing. They've had the decorations up for the last 3 or 4 weeks, pretty much in every housing estate and apartment complex. So that's going to be our main topic, as we'll be just a few days away from Halloween.
I'll just give one massive shout out, by the way, to anyone who's still listening. Look out on the Bogotá Post website tomorrow. We've got a bit of a Halloween announcement for a special themed Halloween beer that's going to be launched on Saturday. So keep an eye on the website.
Excellent. Ollie, and to everybody else, good night, guys.
Ciao.